In this video we'll be learning about the major scale pattern, what intervals are, and how to get chords from a major scale. The major scale is one of the most commonly used scales. It is one of the diatonic scales in music. Now, diatonic means that it has 7 notes in it, and it has a particular sequence or pattern of intervals between the notes. So what is an interval? An interval is a difference in pitch between any 2 notes. The 2 smallest intervals are semitones and tones. A semitone is also known as a half step and is equal to 1 fret on your guitar. A tone is also known as a whole step and is equal to 2 frets on your guitar. So we use these semitones and tones as building blocks to build other types of intervals between 2 notes. And we describe the intervals using numbers. So if we look at the C major scale, which has no sharps and no flats, from the first note C to the second note D, that is an interval that's called a second. It consists of 1, 2 half steps, or 1 whole step. And that's equal to 2 frets on your guitar. If we look at C to E, that is an interval that's called a third. So going from the C, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 half steps, or 2 whole steps, which is equal to 4 frets on the guitar. The list goes on. We have from C to F is a 4th, from C to G is a 5th, from C to A is a 6th, from C to B is a 7th, and from C to C is an octave. When people are talking about intervals, you may also hear an extra bit of information they give you. For example, C to E has 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, and it's called a major third. Now, from C to E flat, it has 1, 2, 3 half steps, and that is called a minor third. So this is the difference between a major and a minor scale and a chord, is this third note is the most prominent difference. Other types of qualities that you'll hear referred to with intervals is, well, we have the major interval, minor intervals. We then have perfect intervals, augmented intervals, and diminished intervals. So looking at our C major scale, the notes of the C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And the sequence of half and whole steps in a major scale is a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, a half step. Now you can see the pattern there. We have 2 whole steps, then a half step, 3 whole steps, then a half step. And this is what makes a diatonic scale, is that specific pattern. So you can start on any note in the musical alphabet and apply this pattern to get a major scale starting on that first note. So if we play it on the 3rd fret of the string number 5, which is a C. Take notice of how many frets are between the notes as you play them. Now also from the major scale we can get the modes, which I'll briefly touch on. I don't want to confuse you too much. But modes are a series of scales that are based on the major scale, and each of the modes has a different characteristic. So if you were to start on the first note of the C major scale, that is called an Ionian mode. If you start on the second note, it's a Dorian mode. If you start on the third note, it's a Phrygian mode. If you start on the fourth note, it is a Lydian mode. If you start on the fifth note, it is Mixolydian mode. If you start on the sixth note, it's an Aeolian mode. And if you start on the seventh note, it is a Locrian mode. And you'll notice if you start on a different note or different degree to play that mode, it still has the pattern with the whole notes and the half notes. It's just shifted and starts on a different section in that pattern. Okay, we won't go into any more about modes, but we'll go back to the C major scale. And how do we get chords from a C major scale? Okay, we can get 7 chords from a C major scale. And the way we do it is, you can see that the note numbers there, or they're also called the degree of the scale. The first degree is a C, second is a D, etc. Okay, so we start with the first note, the first degree. We take that note, the C, we skip the next note. Then we take the next note after that, which is the E, then we skip the next note. Then we take the next note after that. So we end up with C, E, G. So that is a major chord, and we know this from the first 2 notes in that chord, the C and the E. As you'll see, between the C and the E, it is a major third interval. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, 4 half steps between it, 4 frets, okay? Now we look at chord number 2. We do the same thing. We start with that note number 2, or the degree number 2, which is a D. We skip the next note. We take the next note after that, which is an F. We skip the next note, and we take the next note after that, which is an A. So we have D, F, A. So that is the second chord, and it is a D minor. And we know it's a D minor because between the notes D and F, starting at the D, we have 1 step, 2, 3. We have 3 half steps. So that denotes that it is a minor chord. For our third chord, we start on the third note. We have E, skip a note, G, skip a note, B. That is E minor. The fourth chord, we have F, skip a note, A, skip a note, C, and that's a F major. The fifth chord, we have G, skip a note, B, skip a note, D, and that is a G major. The sixth chord is A, skip a note, C, skip a note, E, and that is A minor. The 7th chord is B, skip a note, D, skip a note, F, and that is a B diminished chord. Now, a diminished chord it's basically built with 2 minor third intervals. So from the B, we have 1, 2, 3 half steps up to the D. And from the D to the F, we have 1, 2, 3 half steps. So a diminished chord is basically 2 minor thirds, relatively speaking, from the B and the D note. Now also with chords, you'll find we have the numbers down there at the side when we've built these chords. In most music, you'll see Roman numerals. Roman numerals are an easy way to communicate the aspects of a piece of music in a way that's universal to all of the instruments or all of the keys in music. The Roman numerals are the scale degrees, okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is where we get our chords from. So it's used in a scale and it's used in chords. If we change the numbers of the chords to Roman numerals, we end up with this type of pattern, and you'll notice that a capital Roman numeral will make it a major, a lowercase Roman numeral will make it a minor, a lowercase with a little circle, a degree symbol, will make it a diminished chord. Now the root note of a scale is the first note in that scale. The classical music term for it is also called the tonic. Melodies that we play using that scale usually start and end on the root note. Usually, they don't always have to. And the root note will always feel like a home note for the melody. Like it comes back to rest at that home note, okay? Or even that home chord. So your notes in a scale are similar to having the 7 chords from that scale. The scale is a combination of a root note and a mode, where the root note is the first note of the mode. So in all of those different modes that we briefly went through, if you were to start on the 3rd degree or the 3rd note, the root note of that scale, starting on that 3rd note, is the 3rd note name, which in C major would be E. Similar thing for chords is the root note is always the first note of that chord. So even though, say, we've picked chord number 5, it starts on a G, the root note of G major chord is the note G. So how to read the chord charts. The lines that go up and down are the strings. On the left is string number 6, the thick string. On the right is string number 1, the thin string. The horizontal lines that are going across are the fret bars. The X and the O at the top, the X means do not play that string, the O means do play that string. The dots on the chart show which fret to put your finger on, the numbers show you which finger to put on that fret, and the letters at the bottom are the note names. You don't usually see the note names at the bottom of a chord chart. So we'll go through and play all of these chords. I'll just make them as easy as I can. Maybe the open chords would be the best way to start, just so that you can hear how it sounds going from C up to B diminished in the chords.